Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining DataCon LA 2020. Welcome to the AI ML data science track, and soon we'll be listening to the responsible AI session with Suresh Palraj. I am Eli, your host, and co-host today will be Aaron. We will be moderating the chat and QA for you during the session. Today, we have as our guest Suresh Palraj, and he will be talking about responsible AI. Suresh has been working in the tech industry for almost a couple of decades, passionate about technology, and has started a developer in open source. Oh, that was weird. Working for Microsoft for the past 5 years as a cloud solutions architect with a focus in data and AI. For the past 6 years, he's organized DevOps in Orange County and SoCal DevOps user group to help evangelize DevOps in the local community. At Microsoft is working in new retail and consumer good organizations, leading many technologies initiatives. I think something got chopped up in the in the presentation. But without further ado, let me hand this over to the speaker. Here is Suresh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eli. Let me go ahead and share my screen and let me know once you start seeing my screen.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for these kind words and the introduction. I appreciate that, Eli. So I've been working in this industry, and the mini initiative, one of the initiative is responsible AI within Microsoft. Apart from leading on the, helping prep the AI exams and things like that, a lot of different things, even defining the a solution architect role in some cases. I chose this topic because, there is a explosion of AI technologies, right? So what used to be like, a company focused on, say, manufacturing or healthcare, they started, calling themselves like, software company. And now, the new wave of AI, given this current situation, a lot of them need to get those, information and provide great personalization, especially in the retail industry, right? If you will. So a lot of companies are looking into this, right? So this is not going to be a, easy task, like being responsible in the sense, like, a lot of the AI concepts are very abstract, and taking them and putting into practice is something is always work in progress, right? So that's why I thought to talk about this responsible AI. And why are we talking about this, right? So I had given a little bit background. And this is a great book authored by Brad Smith, who is our president and chief legal officer of Microsoft. In his words, right, the more powerful the tool, the greater the benefit or damage it can cause. Technology innovation is not going to slow down, right? We know that for sure. And what we need to do is we need to work to manage it. Managing the process need to be speed up. And that's what is, here, right? Because this is going to give a great life for us. But how do we manage it so that, the talking about the damage, how can we mitigate or eliminate wherever it needed, right? So that is one thing. And then why responsible AI, right? So there are a lot of different technologies we know, but then the AI technology has more proximity to human intelligence. So it has impact at a personal and societal level as well. The pace of innovation in AI is mind-blowing, and that's why, like, what we are seeing in vision, like in 2016 we achieved object recognition human parity, 2017 speech recognition human parity, and in 2018 reading comprehension and itself, like, translation, speech synthesis, and even language understanding in 2019. So we started seeing a lot of virtual bots. So we many of our interactions with maybe financial institutions have already been replaced with, in most cases, with the bot technologies, right? So any harder question, then it goes to the agent and things like that. And also, take time to think about, when we started this industrial revolution, right? So that time people thought the world is too big to be, impacted or even cause any harm to it. But then fast forward now, where are we now, right? So climate change, it is impacting a lot of things that is happening around the world. The, kind of animals and birds, it's impacting all of those which cohabit this earth, right? So we need to be kind of take note of that, and this is the AI technology have to be governed properly so that it's not going to produce harms or anything like that. So in three ways I can think of, right? So with AI, I started seeing already, it's been already, we are using in day-to-day our life, right? So within Microsoft, we kind of leverage AI technologies for forecasting, right? What is the revenue forecasting in the future? And then for a lot of sales people, the quota is set. And then now, we are leveraging from that perspective as well. So it is impacting, and it is also coming in other areas like education, finance, or loan disbursement, whatever those areas as well, right? So we got to be cognizant of that, and that's why a lot of the talk is going to be cover that, right? And then there is great amount of opportunities with AI, right? So say for example, we have the chat bot right today, and for people experiencing some symptoms like fever and things like, they can go self-serve themselves, post those questions, interact with the bots, COVID bots, like COVID-19 bots, and then it can give you the information for free, and then you can take it, leverage, see if you need to go visit the doctor or not, that you can decide yourself, right? The opportunities are unlimited, right? In healthcare, we are talking about, the other day I was talking to a friend of mine is on the 5G technologies and talking about how ultra reliable, low latency in terms of even doing robots doing the surgery, right? Remote surgery with the help of the the doctor sitting in a remote location, right? So how important that is going to be, and what are the considerations, how it should be, picture perfect, right? And then retail, right? So we are talking about digital experience with digital rack and things like that, and personalization as well, recommendations that we know, like, you go into Amazon.com, you get good recommendations and things like that, what product you bought and what are the next product that you can buy. Our customers of similar profile, they can categorize and then suggest something that you may not know even existed, but then you can find that as well. So financial services, like, in terms of, I was just applying those refinance the other day online, right? So everything online. What used to take like days to get the approval is done in matter of hours, right? So they come back and call you, hey, congratulations, your loan refinance loan is approved. And it's all possible through this AI technology as well. And then, sometimes, there are consequences, like, the data that being used in the past may have some biases. So it only favors certain group of people, and then they are, getting this denial of consequential services in insurance or healthcare. So that needs to be mitigated, right? So that's something have to be done through this. What are some other tools that I'll show to you as well? And manufacturing. So it's like Internet of Connected Things, right? So things can talk to itself and then can rectify a lot of different settings in terms of like optimize the settings, say for example in the shop floor, for cutting tools and things like that in computer numerical control machines like that, right? So those are some of the areas and opportunities that we have AI. The debate, right? So facial recognition in China, all the citizens are to be, going through these facial recognition, in the glasses. And fairness, I talked about, about the loan favoring only certain group of people, and then with the corporate responsibility as well. And deep fakes, like, Obama fakes that we've seen became famous, like, with the deep learning, they just replace the speaker with someone similar, and then you can do a whole lot of different things. And human rights, right? So the data privacy, things like that. I think, what it can happen in that perspective. And then contact tracing, consent. So a lot of different topics are kind of very important that we go through this in day in and day out. And then there is a question about, okay, so what are we doing? Like, because traditionally humans are favoring with some biases, right? So when we introduce these, say, these AI with and taking out those bias, are we creating the perfect world? So, right, that's one other debate, right, as well. And how do we tackle it? With Microsoft, we have these AI principles because we researched a lot, worked with a lot of practitioners as well who are developing and deploying AI models across different organizations as well. And then we came up with the AI principle, like, it should be, there should be fairness. AI should be reliable and safe. Fairness in terms of considering all the group, right? So different races, genders, if you will, and it should be reliable and safety. I was talking about doing robotic surgery. So if you are using AI, better to it be reliable and safer, right? Privacy and security, like I talked about the human rights. So it has to be doing that as well. And especially with the healthcare information, we have, like, confidential computing. You just, take the data in encrypted format and then work on it, and create the, train the model, and then, deploy the model, right? So your privacy is secured there. Inclusiveness, right? So, having inclusive in AI is important, right? So about 1 billion people who are, like, physically challenged, right? So who need to be included as part of the design as well. Transparency, right? So how are we making the decision? So, so what feature impact, kind of help influence the decision or coming up with this particular score. So that is something that is that has to be done as well. And then accountability, right? So especially, like, if there are questions in finance, so how did you decide this, make this decision? How did you come up with approval for this particular loan? So you got to go back and then, understand what factors contributed to that and things like that. So the accountability is there. Let me stop and pause and see if there are any questions, Eli. If not,
no questions yet.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a few more slides to go through as well. That's good. Putting AI into practice. So we talked about, AI is very abstract. So how do we take that, put these principles into practice, right? So we looked at those principles: fairness, accountability, transparency, inclusivity, reliability, safety, and privacy and security. So we came up with these guidelines, working with a lot of practitioners and organizations across the industry as well. So you can see across, human AI interaction guidelines, right? So use these guidelines to interact with AI systems, especially, like, when you input into the robot or something like that. For example, like conversational AI guidelines, right? So you are interacting with bot. So how do you make it like, in day-to-day life as if you are communicating with another human beings, right? So what are those guidelines? You don't want to like, turn them off your customer and they are not going to, get a bad, you don't want to give them a bad experience and, you turn them off, right? And then inclusivity, what are those design guidelines as well? And then fairness checklist. So it helps to optimize or mitigate those issues with fairness. And then data sheets, right? So when you, consider these questions to help prioritize transparency by creating data sheets. So these are some of the, guidelines that are available that you can actually take it and then use it. And then security as well, right? So we talked about, how do you protect the AI services and what are some of the guidance for modeling, detecting, and mitigating some security risks and ethics issues, right? So within Microsoft, we do have a couple of organizations. One is called Ether Committee, AETHER, so which is like, it's a committee for ethics and for the engineering and research, right? So they kind of come up with, those are like a committee formed by the experts from different areas and fields. So they come together and create these principles, right? And then we also have Office of Responsible AI, work in closer conjunction with Ether Committee and put those principles into practices. So maybe that is something that you have to think about in your organization as well. And then, how do you put this into practice too, right? So we talked about it with Office of Responsible AI. So we have tools to help, understand, protect, and control. And then these are like, responsible AI tooling. So we have Interpret ML, so which is like a library within Azure Machine Learning. We do have this Interpret ML that is available that you can actually take it and work on your local machine, or you can actually take it and work in Azure as well. So that is available. And then the same way, we have an open source library, Fairlearn, that you can actually take and use it to make sure the biases are addressed or mitigated, so that you can leverage with Fairlearn. So that's how you kind of understand. Then protect. So we talked about how privacy is kind of like a human rights. So that's how we feel it at Microsoft. Homomorphic encryption, right? So making sure that the data is encrypted so it is protected as well. And we have differential privacy. So you have like a public data set that is available. For example, government may come up with demographic information about certain provide demographic information by aggregating a lot of individual information so that you cannot track it to a particular individual or identify a particular individual, right? And then it can come up with certain scheme plans to help that society, right? Confidential machine learning. So you can take those data, but at the same time, you isolate based on the hardware as well as on the software side, so that it is kind of trusted. You kind of have a region like a kind of a trusted code, and only that code is allowed to execute within that scope of the confidential machine learning space, and then it provides that output that you're looking for. And Presidio is one of our partners as well, so we have that kind of offering available with that. And then with the MLOps, right? So you wanted to, yes, we are talking about machine learning. traditionally, we have software development life cycle. So how do we take this machine learning, which is like, from the data scientists who are very good in creating those algorithms, put them into the software development life cycle, give the companies these continuous integration, continuous delivery. How do we do that? So that is done through these ML ops. And within my, with Azure Machine Learning, we have ML pipeline. So that actually kind of provides the separation of concern. So if you are prepping the data, so you work on that pipeline. And if you are kind of training the data, you work on that pipeline. All of them can be stitched together with the ML pipeline, and then you can actually, achieve this continuous integration and continuous delivery as well.
Suresh, we have one question.
Sure.
Is homomorphic encryption available in practice now? Can you provide some pointers to it?
Great question. Yes. So this is available in practice. And let me see if I can bring that up. I don't know on top of my head there is any example I can give, but yeah, I can refer you to this website where we have this, that is already in practice. So probably this is where I will direct you to go get more information. So we are leveraging, at Microsoft Research, and there are some kind of guidance around that as well. So definitely we do use it within Microsoft, and these are some of the workshop that have been done from that perspective in 2018. So we have come a long way from there, and we do have that things available. But I don't know anything on top of my head. Okay, that was a good question. And are there any other questions before we jump on to a demo, quick demo? I assume no.
Nothing's coming up yet.
Got it. Okay. So. Thank you, Eli. So we have different machine learning services are available in different shapes and forms. You can go and do it. So I'm choosing a particular workspace, and I'm going to, maybe I already have that opened up. So let me go into the model, see if I can go into the run. So this is a, I think very familiar public data set from UCI that is available for bike rental, right? So that is the data set that I've leveraged. So I leveraged automated machine learning. So if you are coming from non-data science background, so you can leverage automated machine learning, where you bring in your data, and you can leverage a lot of different algorithms, pre-built algorithms through automated machine learning. And it can actually take the data you bring in a tabular data set, of course, and then it can actually come through. You got to know at a very high level whether it is kind of a regression problem, or it is kind of a forecasting problem, or a classification problem. So once you know that, you can define the constraint. Maybe you can blacklist some of the algorithms as well. But anyway, long story short, you can run that, and then it comes and gives you a suggestion of running through a lot of different iterations, and based on the primary matrix you define, it comes up with those results, right? And then it even gives you the best model and what's the based on the primary matrix, how it fared well and things like that. So for me, it came up with voting ensemble, and this is where I was talking about this interpret ML. You can actually visualize it, and you can see how did it fare well. So data set exploration is kind of how your the data set is from the X and Y value, helping to do this prediction, right? So that is on the data set exploration, but at an overall model level, on different features, how are they faring, right, at the overall model level? Say working day, bike rental during working day, or during the year, the temperature, the humidity, or the weekday, depending on weather, on the wind speed, how it is overall model is contributing, right? So you can see those working day and what is the importance in terms of the numbers as well. And then the explanation of individual features over the predictions as well. So that is something that is also available, and you can actually play around based on okay, let me look at the weather and on the importance. So how does it look like for the weather as well, and then predictor also on the weather, right? So how does it look like? So yeah, of course you would know, right? So on the when it is negatively impacting on this side, right, and then over here it is impacting on the positive side, right, which is like it is contributing, it is influencing the prediction. And then the summary of importance, right, as well, right? So you can look at predicted value, what are the top key features, and how is it moving towards influencing in the prediction as well. So for different features, it can come up, provide you the value that you're looking for on different features as well, right? So this in short that I wanted to show. Let me pause to see if there are any questions, Eli.
No questions yet, but I guess I had a question.
Perfect.
This is, you're using AutoML here, or automated ML. Can you bring in your own models to have them be evaluated by this system, or is that something only available to the pre-existing models in the system?
Great question. So the visualization is built in with the automated machine learning. So if you wanted to do visualization, so we have the packages that are available. Say for example, like I think Fairland, one of the open source that has those libraries available. That you can actually leverage it. But for now, this is for the automated ML. So the visualization today is available, and it is in preview, available as part of the automated machine learning in Azure Machine Learning. So yeah, I don't know, did I answer your question, Eli?
Yes, yes. See if there are any other questions yet.
Sure.
And
there are great resources. So you can actually, go ahead and then there are good sample notebooks are also available that you can actually take a look. So some of the things that you can leverage. So you can use interpret ML to do different things, right? So maybe there are legal auditors that they wanted to validate for the regulatory compliance, or for the decision makers. So it gives you a peace of mind. And even during the training phase, right? So you can actually use this output. Make sure you verify your hypothesis, and you can validate it, and you can even eliminate some insignificant features in that case, right? So those are some of the concrete examples or uses that you can leverage, and these are like the packages we were talking about, right? So with Azure Machine Learning, so you can use with Python, because Azure Machine Learning is leveraging the Python SDK. So you can use this Azure ML Interpret package, install it, and then start these are some of the interpretability techniques. Sharp, deep explainer, the sharp tree explainer, and things like that. So we do have this black box or glass box techniques available as well. So these are great resources that you can go and leverage, and there are some sample notebooks in GitHub that you can actually use it for the custom development as well, right? So let me see if there are any more questions, Eli.
None yet.
Okay.
Let's see. We'll wait a minute and see if anyone else has a question.
Sure. Yeah, and then AI principles. So like I talked about, so there are very good resources on how do you kind of turn the turn the principle into practices. So there are some good videos on that as well. Same with all the 6 principles we talked about. And then the guidelines are great resources, right? So and then it came up with actually kind of what are the guidelines and things like that as well. I wanted to show. This is like one of the guidelines, right? So, but this is evolving day in and day out, and we kind of work with I think 48 practitioners and co-design this AI fairness checklist, right? So it is good to leverage this, but it is still evolving, and we talk about what are the limitations as well. So if you are in that space, I think these are really good to think about in advance before, typically in the software development lifecycle, if you can address the issue in the earlier stages in the software development lifecycle, you can save ton of resources, cost, savings, and all those things, right? But if you are, let that issue come all the way into implementation and then start addressing, then it's a lot of effort, energy, time, money, all involved, right? So I would highly recommend make this as like forethought, not an afterthought, right? Because like traditionally we have seen also like security kind of like a afterthought. Now we have DevSecOps, right? That's a field that we have, DevSecOps. So all of those security features are even rolled in the beginning of the software development lifecycle the same way. Responsible AI, in this case, maybe MLOps. So you can roll in all those checklist principles into practices there itself, so that all of these things can be taken care and addressed, so that there is a question that come up later on. You have all the tools. And especially with the regulatory compliance, what we are seeing, right? So you should be able to answer those questions as well. These are like, the glass box, right? So we leverage this with the explainable boosting machines. But these are like, applicable only today for certain algorithms, like we barely touching up on those, right? Like the regression, or the classification. There are other ML algorithms. These have to be extended as well. But these are like good place to start, right? So in black box, right? So you don't have access to that model data. So how do you, how do you take it and then leverage these black box techniques to introduce this, address the bias and things like that. This is like one of the sample notebook that you can leverage as well. I think I am almost done, unless there are any questions there for me.
I have one more question. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A yet. Sure. So as far as regulatory bodies are concerned, are there, so I'm working in at a small startup using a lot of machine learning, where we haven't been held to the same fire that I think a lot of larger organizations are being held to for the explainability of their machine learning. Is there some sort of base level of uh, uh, of explainability that needs to happen in most organizations to be considered acceptable?
Great question. Great question. You know, I have not seen any mandate that you got to be, you know, I mean, I'm not like a legal person anyway, but
Yeah.
I have not seen like, yeah, there is a minimal and there is a, you know, kind of a threshold set to meet the compliance on the AI perspective in terms of adhering to fairness and interpretability. But the general guideline is like, are these sensitive use cases? Is it, you know, are there any denial of consequential services when you use this model, right? Are there any human rights infringement? So these are like, you know, general guidelines. Even we are rolling out within Microsoft, and you know, we are hearing from the field, providing those guidelines for those sensitive use cases, and then they reach out to us, and then we work with them and you know, provide those best guidelines. But then we already have, like we talked about, right? So for BOT, we have the conversational guidelines. As long as you follow that, I think you are in good shape. But the general guidelines is, make sure if it is sensitive use cases, you know, address that in advance. But I have, you know, to my knowledge, there is no threshold set from the regulatory bodies yet. I may be wrong because I don't work on those.
No, yeah, I don't know either. So I was just wondering.
But great question.
Yeah. We have time maybe for one more question if there's anyone with a question.
Okay.
No question. You know, we've seen this a lot in our meetings. We don't have that many questions coming up on HOVA.
No worries, but your question was good, and this is a very interesting discussion too, right? So
Yeah.
when we think about this, because it is impacting our life already, and we got to be aware of this, you know, and even start asking questions, right? So if something is not happening the way you expected, make sure, because it may be some model that is making a decision that you are not aware of, and by, you know, raising those awareness and asking those questions, you know, we create a better world for all of us and for our future generation as well. Perfect. Thank you,
Okay.
Eli and Aaron.
Well, let me close us out with a little pre-written statement that we have to give here. Thank you, Suresh, for your presentation, and I appreciate all the attendees for the questions and interactions during this session. Please contact the speaker if you have further questions regarding this topic. Please provide your comments and feedback to us or the organizers on the community board, or start a discussion there to connect with others in the DataCon LA 2020 community. Thank you for joining today's presentation, and I hope you have gained some insights from this session. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for being a part of this year's DataCon LA. Thank you again, Suresh.
Thank you as well.